Good evening and welcome to the Climate Change Town Hall. I'm Jordan Lindsay. After our
recording in progress,
I will call on each of the speakers when it's your turn to ask your question. We ask that you mute yourself and turn off your camera when it's not your turn to speak. We also have Marcela Rodriguez on the Zoom for any residents who may need interpretation services from Spanish to English. Participants on the Zoom may also view Spanish captioning by selecting the closed captioning button at the bottom of the Zoom screens. It's the button marked as CC in capital letters. Marcela, to you.
Este programa se está traduciendo al español para los participantes en Zoom. Puede acceder a este recurso seleccionando el botón CC en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom.
Great, thank you so much, Marcela. Our first question this evening comes from Adam Roberts with Bethesda Green. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and toss it to you, Council President Hucker, so you can go ahead and give those opening remarks. My apologies. Thank you.
No worries at all. Welcome, Councilmember Reamer. Thank you so much, Jordan, and everybody who's joining us today. I'm Tom Hucker. I'm the president of the County Council, and bless you, Councilmember Katz. I'm the president of the County Council, and I'm the chair of our Transportation Environment Committee. I'm really excited to host our 2021 Climate Town Hall, which I believe is unprecedented, but I hope it's the first of many that we have on this topic because it's not going away anytime soon, and we're extremely serious and committed to addressing it. We're here tonight, obviously, to talk about climate because the threat of climate change and our need to take action is really the most important, maybe the only existential threat to the county. And I called this event after discussions with so many advocates and experts over the last year who felt that holding a town hall like this was an important approach to inform and involve our residents in the county's efforts to address climate change. I'm really pleased that we have so many residents, including those of you who are here tonight and so many who have been in touch with us, who are actively thinking about ways the county can improve our climate resilience. This is something we must solve together. It poses severe risk to all of our residents, our businesses, and our built and our natural environment. The county's been active for many years in studying the county's greenhouse gas emissions, in developing goals and strategies and implementing numerous initiatives, but we're not implementing enough of these initiatives quickly enough. There are an incredible number of details to discuss, but it's very clear, I think, to all of us that we can't delay action any longer. I'm really glad that all of you are here because education and public engagement is going to be critical in our efforts as we expand the actions that we can take. It's very important to bring the public along and inform them and engage them so that we have the political will to make the investments that we need to protect the county and our residents and address this existential threat. From the perspective of the government, it's critical that we have a data-driven analysis to determine which actions are the most important and the most effective, and then move swiftly to enact them. The current planning effort began in 2017. At that time, the council approved Resolution 18974, which was our declaration of a climate emergency. The resolution supported an ambitious goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035 to initiate large-scale efforts to remove excess carbon from the atmosphere, end quote. Earlier this year, the council restored funding earlier that year, the council restored the funding for the Climate Action Plan. We had been sent a budget that had no funding for it. I was proud to push with my members of the Transportation Environment Committee to restore the funding, to give us a climate action plan, and there was supposed to be a quantitative analysis of the most effective ways to reduce the county's carbon footprint and meet our goals. The plan was designed to be a flexible and living document because we don't have all the answers today, and we have to update it annually as we work toward our near-term goals. We're already making changes to our commercial and our residential buildings to encourage the use of renewable fuels and to generally use energy much more efficiently. That's one area where the council can have a sizable impact. The 2018 International Green Construction Code was approved by the council in September. The regulation in the IGCC raises the standards for new construction regarding energy efficiency, health, and performance of all of our new building sites and structures. We're also reviewing amendments right now to the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, also known as CPACE program, in Bill 4621. That will expand the range of climate change-related improvements available for commercial property. And then in addition, the Building Energy Performance Standards Bill 1621 was introduced by the Council in May and is under review in the Transportation and Environment Committee. That bill will expand the number of existing buildings that are covered by current benchmarking requirements so we know how much energy they're using, and it will establish clearer energy performance standards for more buildings. The Maryland General Assembly also passed legislation to allow a community choice energy pilot in the county. We're the first county in the state to be able to do that. And that will allow a local government to create an energy program to purchase energy in bulk purchase. So the county government will be able, on behalf of hundreds of thousands of homeowners, to purchase energy with higher renewable and lower greenhouse gas content. The county's infrastructure will also need updates to account for changes in our climate and in our climate work plan. This is called adaptation. Flooding from stormwater is one area we need to address right now with improved facility planning for storm drains and stream valley improvements within our natural environment. Notably, our local environment is an asset that is already working with us to sequester carbon from the atmosphere, but we will need to take additional actions to maintain our canopy trees and manage our agricultural lands in more sustainable ways. The county is going to be exploring reforestation and tree maintenance and street tree preservation and energy conservation and efficiency projects on our parkland. And in transportation, the elephant in the room is that we need is something we need to address head on. It's a major challenge, but it's something we can and will solve. The county is actively adding to our fleet of electric buses with 44 new electric buses to be acquired by 2023. We are also imagining a county with improved transportation options, including access to bus rapid transit and bicycle and pedestrian priority areas. There's a lot to consider. I am going to stop here and let you all hear from my colleagues as well. I'm pleased that you're all here tonight. Very much look forward to your questions about how we can work together to take meaningful action to reduce our carbon footprint and adapt to climate change. Let me turn it over to my colleagues for quick introductions, starting with Vice President Gabe Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank you and your team for putting together tonight's important discussion. This does set an important precedent moving forward because, as we know, this is such a critical issue on every conceivable level. And I'll note, as we all know, it's a global issue. The most recent wave of migrants that we're seeing arriving to Montgomery County, in large part, are coming from Central America, and in large part because of the devastating realities of climate changing impacting their communities at home. We, as a council and as a county, need to continue to do everything that we can within reason to address this critically important issue. I appreciate the plan that has been laid out by the county executive, the policies that have been enacted by my colleagues. The council president and I are working on legislation that we will be announcing shortly that I think will really help move the needle in the climate space. And I'm also committed, as many of us are, to ensuring that we have more diverse voices in this conversation, because we know it's often our Black and Brown communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change here in Montgomery County. And having them part of this discussion and us holistically addressing these issues, working with our private sector as well as our public sector, is when we're really going to be able to move the needle. So while I won't be able to stay with you all the entirety of tonight's event, we have an important milestone birthday in my family we're celebrating tonight. I did want to come by and say a few words up front and commit as the incoming council president to ensuring we continue this conversation in a format just as this and institutionalize this so that we can all be held accountable. Thank you again, Mr. Council President.
Thank you so much, Mr. Council Vice President. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and Mr. Vice President as well. And thank you, Mr. President, for putting this forum forward. It's certainly an extremely important topic, and this is an extremely, this is the right way for all of us to start having to continue having all of the discussions that are so very necessary on it. I think we are all committed to working together to create the environment that we need to create. It is an easy thing to say and a very difficult thing to do. I believe that it's necessary, as the Vice President has already mentioned, that we have many people at the table. We need people from every background and from every industry to sit with us to come up with the best solutions that are absolutely possible so that we can create the world, continue to have a world that we can all be proud of. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here tonight. The news about climate change is so debilitating. It is so, it keeps us all up at night. But really, for the first time in my life, in the past few years, I feel optimistic because I believe there is a path forward, that we have a way to get control over this problem and change the trend line. And that is called electrification. Now, electrification is a very real, tangible, directly in front of us approach to tackle the climate crisis. And it requires us to get all dirty fuel out of the electricity grid, so shut down all the coal and the natural gas, and get all the dirty fuel out of the transportation sector, get all the vehicles off of gasoline and onto plug-in electric. And we can do this. We can make this happen. So I'm really passionate about clean energy. We've got to plan out how to generate clean energy in Montgomery County, everywhere we can, on every rooftop, every parking lot, every piece of ground possible. We've got to improve our building efficiency. We've got to support the transition to a highly efficient building sector. We've got to get composting going. We have free curbside composting. And we got to have smart growth. Thrive 2050 is the land use part of the climate plan. And we need to get Thrive 2050 done. We got to deliver on our smart growth vision. So it's time to move from climate talk to climate action. And I'm excited about all the possibilities that we have. And I look forward to working with my colleagues to get things done. Thank you so much to everyone's part of this important movement.
Terrific. I should mention Councilmember Frieza, I think, is joining us in a few minutes, and Councilmember Novato has staff here, but has a previous family commitment, but she will be reviewing the tape and talking to her staff. I talked to her just a few minutes ago. Let me also welcome special guest Amanda Aparicio, the Assistant Chief of the Facilities Management Division, and Keith Levchenko, our Senior Legislative Analyst for the County Council, who are also with us tonight to answer any questions. So let me turn it back to Jordan so we can get started with the questions.
Thank you so much, Council President Hucker. Our first question this evening comes from Adam Roberts with Bethesda Green. Adam?
Thanks very much, Jordan, and thank you, Council President Hucker and other members of the council. I appreciate it. I'm Adam Roberts, as Jordan said, with Bethesda Green, a member of the Montgomery County Climate Action Plan Coalition. And my question harkens back to some of Council President Hucker's opening statement about priorities for the county. We've got a county that's approved a recognition of a climate emergency many years ago, and now a climate action plan. And so I'd like to ask you all how you look to prioritize what actions you're willing to take from a legislative perspective to implement the climate action plan, given that it's got such a wide suite of actions that are necessary on carbon sequestration and adaptation and transportation, composting, waste, all of that. How are you going to prioritize it? Is it doing what's most consequential, most comprehensive, most equitable, financially capable? Because I think we all agree action's vital. How are you all going to prioritize what to tackle up front?
Well, great question, Adam. I'll take the very first bite at it and turn it over to my colleagues as well. I'm sure we all have opinions about this. You're right. Climate change is it's a problem that is complicated and has taken centuries to create. And is very multifaceted, as you know, as well as anybody. And we don't have centuries to eliminate it or address it. So that's why the council funded the Climate Action Plan back in FY 2019. And I got to tell you, I was disappointed. The way the consultants created the plan did not end up addressing the scope of the plan that we had charged them with. The way it was forwarded to them by the administration, we asked for that quantitative analysis. So we would know, and I think it's important for everybody to understand, we have there's a certain number of things we can tell the private sector to do. Some things that are outside our authority and the state or the federal government has to do. And so, we can't make everybody buy an electric car, for an example. We can't change the energy mix into the state renewable portfolio standard. The state has to do that. There are a number of things that we have the authority to do. We asked for a quantitative analysis so we would know as policymakers and as people with the budget authority for the county, the $6 billion budget of the Montgomery County, what's the best way to spend every $1 million we have. Is it to buy electric buses? Is it to put up solar arrays on our buildings? Is it to invest in food waste, composting, or stormwater management, or tree canopy, or anything else? And what we got back, as you know, because you've read it, is a more sort of elementary, rudimentary analysis that has a whole lot of things that could have a high impact, a number of things that could have a medium impact, and a number of things that could have a low impact. And while that's a start, if we have dozens of recommendations that have a high impact, it doesn't really tell us where to start or what the best investment of each $1 million are. So it's important that we do what we can to get the cost benefit analysis. We know we should start. There are many things that have already started, as you know. But in terms of sectors, we know our buildings generate about 50% of our carbon. And so we just passed the International Green Construction Code for new buildings, and we'll be taking up the BEPS bill, the Building Energy Performance Standard, for our older buildings. The way that bill is structured, I don't think it works very well, unlike St. Louis and Boston and DC that have similar measures in place. It puts a mandate of millions of dollars of investment on building owners that's enforced by a $1,000 penalty. So, if every parking ticket cost $1, you'd probably not ever refill your meter. And that's kind of how this bill works. It's hard to make a building owner spend $2 million or $5 million on their building if the fine we can impose is only $1,000, which is what we're allowed by the state. So that's why Councilmember Frieza and I introduced, and all my colleagues co-sponsored, a Green Building Financing Act recently to put $20 million from our budget every year, 10% of our energy tax, into the Green Bank every year, so the Green Bank can try to bond that money and put it on the street to provide grants, loans, and technical assistance to help our building owners make the energy investment improvements that we need. That's really important as well. So I think we'll pass those in the next couple months. Both the BEPS bill and the financing complement to it, so it really works well. We'll be doing a lot more in the budget, which we take up in the spring, to get more electric buses on the street and invest in our retrofits of our urban walkable neighborhoods, like through our BEPS, our BIPAs, our bicycle and pedestrian areas in Silver Spring and Bethesda and Wheaton elsewhere. And we'll continue to make a lot of investments through the budget as well. But it's frustrating not to have the quantitative analysis, the cost benefit analysis of every one of those approaches, because it just sort of takes longer. But we're all committed to this, and the IGCC, the BEPS bill, the financing bill, I think are going to be a big step in the right direction to attack the biggest source of our carbon pollution. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam, for the question. I was chuckling to myself somewhat. If I didn't laugh, I'd cry a little bit about your question as to how to prioritize, because I was the council member who initially proposed the funding for what became the Climate Action Plan, and I worked very closely with the Sierra Club. It came out of an experience that I was having trying to figure out if we've got $1 million, what's the best way to invest that money for climate impact? And we've had to make some tough choices. 2 years ago, I wanted to significantly increase the electric bus fleet. At the same time, we were trying to restore funding that the county executive's budget had cut for bus service. How do we weigh the relative impact of more bus service versus more electric buses? That's the kind of thing that I was hoping the plan would be able to create a tool to do to help us really, assess what the best $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. We didn't get that kind of a tool out of it. However, I think it has produced some valuable information for us. If you look at the Climate Action Plan, what you see is almost all of the emissions reduction that we will get comes from changing fuel sources. it really, even the building sector, fundamentally, the efficiencies that are part of the picture, but the real impact comes from the electricity grid that the buildings use, no longer having coal and gas as the fuel source, but having solar and wind. So whether it's the transportation sector, the building sector, or the actual power plant emissions themselves, it's clear to me that everything really comes down to fuel switching, how to get solar and wind into the grid and into vehicles rather than gas and coal. So that has helped focus my effort and really animated my advocacy and prioritization around energy generation. I think the fuel efficiency, the building efficiency funding is awesome. I think it's going to have a terrific impact. But we as a county have got to really get serious about generating clean energy locally and delivering on that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Councilmember Katz, Council Vice President, anything to add? If not, I'll want to ask Councilmember Frieza if he's got any opening remarks. Council Vice President.
No, just really quickly, I agree with everything that both Council Members Hucker and Reamer just said. I think, I do believe we have a very strong Department of Environmental Protection, and I was really sad to see Director Adam Ortiz go, but he's already hit the ground running at the federal level. But he left us in extraordinarily good hands, and they have made a series of recommendations, and I have confidence in their ability to be able to help sort through which of these recommendations we are in the most control of and that we can advance as quickly as possible. We have to weigh looking at what's low-hanging fruit and what we can do as quickly as possible, and then begin the groundwork and infrastructure for those longer-term issues to be able to really come to fruition. I'll give you just one quick example that is, and great ideas are coming from everywhere. Mm-hmm. There were a group of elementary school students that came and visited my office just a couple of years ago with an idea to initiate a composting program in their elementary school. Now, as it turns out, there are several other elementary schools doing the same thing. And Lynn Harris on the Board of Education, along with several of her colleagues, as well as Laura Charkoudian, put together a meeting that I had the pleasure and honor of attending a few months ago. And I was really struck by the innovation and ingenuity and perseverance being shown by these students. They are leading the way. And it just struck me that there's no reason why we can't implement a robust and comprehensive composting program within our school system. Yes, it's going to cost money. Yes, it's going to involve some policy changes and some adjustments to schedules. But if we're really serious about this, that's exactly the kind of thing that we need to implement and phase in over time. That's an example of the kind of project that's manageable within the county's control and something that will move the needle and make an impact, generationally, actually. So that's just one of many examples, but I wanted to share some of my reflections and thoughts as I go through my decision-making on, I'm going to try and support as many of these policies, but in particular the ones that are actionable as soon as possible.
Perfect. Councilmember Friesen, welcome. I'm sorry, Councilmember Katz, were you trying to get in?
I was, but you can welcome Councilmember Friesen. Now I can go after him, please.
He can welcome himself. He's well spoken.
Quite all right. Thanks for welcoming me. It's great to be here. This is such a critical topic and something that we ought to be talking about every day in everything that we do. I apologize for being a few minutes late, but appreciate the fact that I could join the conversation, and happy to really get into the guts of this. And I think, really the focus of this should be listening to residents and the advocacy. We need to be listening more to that. I am proud of some of the work that we have done already. I think some of it probably has been mentioned. Council President Hucker and I have a bill right now to dedicate 10% of the fuel energy tax for the green retrofitting. Hopefully we can talk about that a little bit more. Councilmember Reamer and I have worked on a number of initiatives, including the Green Building Energy Tax Credit, which I think is going to be significant. I think both of those are really good examples of us not only raising the bar, but providing a ladder for folks to reach that bar. And I think that's going to be really important as we try to figure out how to tackle the climate crisis. We're not going to be able to do it with government alone, and we're not going to be able to do it with the private sector alone. And we're not going to be able to do it with the nonprofit sector alone. We need everybody on board, and we need it to be in a coordinated and collaborative way. But the government has to lead it. And that's really, what I hope today's conversation is going to be about. More leadership from county government. We have done a lot in recent years, and yet we haven't done nearly as much as we need to in order to come close to hitting our ambitious goals. So appreciate the fact that everybody's joined us. Thank you, Council President, for organizing this, and appreciate you indulging me, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Councilmember Frieza. Mr. President, thank you for allowing me to say a few words. The Vice President already mentioned composting in schools. My office was involved in that as well. We already know that some of our visiting or our neighboring counties are doing that to a much greater degree than Montgomery County is doing it, and we need to make certain that we're doing it as well. And the only other thing I did want to mention, and I know there's so many other questions that we need to be getting to, and I know that Jordan wants to get to them, but the only other thing I wanted to mention is we keep talking about millions of dollars, and millions of dollars are very difficult during the best of times for any organization, any government to come up with. But when the fact is that millions of dollars is not the figure that we need. We need so many more millions of dollars, and we literally have limited resources, even with millions of dollars, to get things done. And to your point earlier, Mr. President, and I believe others mentioned this as well, that when you have so many priorities, therefore we can't. It's like everything is a priority, so everything is not a priority at that point. We need to actually figure out with a blueprint, what we need to be doing first, and then go through the list and do things that we can actually accomplish. And there's going to be things that will happen in many, many years from today, and that's fine too. But we need a blueprint that actually says, this is what we should do first, this is what it will cost, and this is what we're going to get done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Back to you, Jordan.
Great. Thank you, Council President. The next question this evening comes from Juan Nunez. Juan?
Yes, hello. Thank you, everyone. My first question is regarding the carbon sequestration actions. There's a lot of development that's being done in, green spaces and, the forest areas. And I was wondering if there's anything a person can do to, perhaps pause that so we can have a conversation before those areas are permanently destroyed. And then the second question is, there's this ivy that's been that spreads in this area that has killed a lot of the trees. So I was just wondering what immediate actions one could take to prevent these invasive species from also destroying the green spaces and the forest. Thank you.
Juan, could you restate the first part, because you faded out for a second. I heard it was about carbon sequestration and preventing tree loss?
Yes. There's a lot of development that's being done on green spaces and forest areas, and I was just wondering if there's something that can be done to pause the destruction of these areas.
Yeah, sure. I've been meeting with advocates about this a fair amount. There's a lot I think we could do to strengthen our tree maintenance and our street tree preservation laws. And there are a number of proposals in the works. I don't think there's any proposals before the council right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And I know Councilmember Reamer want to jump in on this as well. And Mr. Levchenko might have thoughts as well. But we're eager for your feedback, and there's a number of potential proposals. Councilmember Reamer.
Well, I just wanted to say, we have set aside 1/3 of all the land in this county for agricultural uses through low density zoning. So it's about 100,000 acres in the county, preserved from intense development. And so to the extent that you see occasionally, patches of green space or forest that is being developed, it's usually, it's in a place that has been designated through a comprehensive vision that is really a vision of preserving land, but within our urban areas, certainly the intent is preserving parkland, preserving stream valleys, preserving trees or replacing them if that's the only option. But more development next to public transportation is a very strong environmental policy. So I'd be interested to know what land you're referring to, specifically, but we have tree preservation ordinances that we need to strengthen, no doubt. But also, I think we should see that as a whole, the county has a very preservationist mindset about development. We have a very restrictive view of where development should be. And for example, with Thrive 2050, which we're trying to finalize, what we're seeking to do is ever more direct the development to established existing urban areas, rather than have forest area be developed. So thank you for that question, Juan.
Yes. Well, the areas I'm mostly talking about are previous park areas and areas in residential areas that the community would use to get away from maybe the busy streets and things like that is now being turned into, for example, parking lots. And I'd be glad to share more information about where it is that I'm referring to.
Please do. That would be great. Thank you.
Maybe that's a conversation we can have offline. But also the other question was about that invasive species.
Yeah.
That is really becoming a problem that when, I've lived in this county for over 25 years, and my local park used to have these huge, beautiful trees, and little by little, this ivy has been taking them down. So if there's something I can do, maybe other people can do, that's kind of the information that I was looking for. And I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
Sure. Amanda Aparicio is here from Parks. Thanks.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. If it's an ivy, it's probably English ivy that is plaguing those trees. But we do have a program in Montgomery Parks called the Weed Warriors program. It's a volunteer program where you can get trained on identification and how to properly and safely remove invasive plants. So if you're interested in that program, you could probably search on the Montgomery Parks website for Weed Warriors. And that's one way that you could get involved to try to help protect those trees. We have a very large volunteer base that helps out with this challenge on parkland. So thank you very much for your interest. We need all the help we can get with that.
Thank you.
Great. Did any other council members have any comments? Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Nunez. Up next, we have Marjorie Ann Bromhead. Marjorie?
Good evening. Thank you very much for organizing this town hall. I have actually two questions now. One of them really developed from our earlier discussion. The first one, really building on what the councillors have said regarding electrification and fuel switching and what we can do in the short run that doesn't cost very much money. Does Montgomery County see any near-term prospects for following the lead of Washington, D.C. and some of the incorporated towns in Montgomery County of phasing out gasoline-powered leaf blowers? That's the first question, a very specific one. And the second question, also building on what the elementary schools have been doing on composting, is there any prospect for Montgomery County regulating the separation of food waste from other forms of waste and composting that. This is common practice all over Northern European countries, and I wonder what the prospects are in making it more widespread for Montgomery County. Thank you very much. I just see those as two what you call low-hanging fruits, which might not cost very much and which we might be able to do in the near term. Thank you.
Councilmember Cass, you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. For the first part about the leaf blowers, the council, it's our understanding, and my colleagues can correct me. I always say it's when I'm wrong, it's not if I'm wrong, but it's our understanding that the county executive is going to be proposing a ban on gasoline-powered leaf blowers, and part of that is that the council could, on their own, also do that. But if the county executive and the Department of Environmental Protection are working on that, then we, in my opinion, we should wait to hear what they're suggesting before we have the legislation. I know that California has banned the sale of gas-powered lawnmowers and leaf blowers and chainsaws, etc., and that is supposed to go into effect by 2024. It's my understanding. But I also believe that we need to, in that same vein, we need to sit down with the industries that it involves and have a good, open, honest, transparent discussion with them to say, if we're going to do this, how are you going to be able to do the work that you need to be doing? And maybe by having those good, honest, open, transparent discussions, that 2024 will happen it'll happen much sooner than 2024. If you can get agreement from people that want to work with you, then that's a better way to do this. So I think we need to have those discussions first. And as far as the composting, I believe that we will be doing it. That there are going to be those separations that other countries have done. And quite candidly, you don't have to go to other countries. You can go to other counties in Maryland and see that they're being done. And Montgomery County prides itself that many times we're the first to do a variety of things. And that's a sense of pride. But if you can copy a good idea, let's copy a good idea. We don't have to be the first, but let's be the best. So anyhow, thank you for your question, and I turn it back to you, Mr. President.
Thanks, and great answer. And Marjorie, I did want to let you know the council, under the leadership of my predecessor of the Transportation Environment Committee, Councilmember Berliner, charged the administration with coming up with a food composting program several years ago. And just recently now, we got a pilot program stood up by our Department of Environmental Protection, which chose 2 neighborhoods in Montgomery County to encourage residents who sign up for it voluntarily to participate in food composting. And those residents can collect their food compost. They can put them out in buckets they collect it in their buckets in their homes. They move it out to the curb, as you would guess. And that program has just begun in those 2 pilot neighborhoods. I happen to live in one, so I wanted to show you. I have my card that the DEP sent me to train, and I encourage them to pick my neighborhood. I volunteered for this, of course, in my little gallon bucket, right? Food compost. I won't show you what's in it, but it went out to the curb last week, and the vendor didn't pick it up, I'm afraid to say, for the first time. But you don't always get things right on the first time. This week, today was my trash day, and I was elated to go out there and check it, and they picked up everything except my rotting pumpkin. So they left that for me. But I'm really glad to participate in the program. It has started, and I'm eager to do whatever we can to accelerate it countywide. Councilmember Frieza.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure Councilman Reamer also will want to chime in. Well, first of all, I think I'm Jewish, so I'm not sure I'm an expert in the field, but I thought that the Christmas lights were supposed to get put up right after Thanksgiving. I didn't realize that the pumpkins were supposed to last to Christmas. But again, I'm still learning.
I think they can go in yard waste now, finally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a couple of things. The big issue with the reason why we're doing pilot programs and we're not doing wholesale programs, it's not funding, it's a facility. And that is the key piece here that is missing in Montgomery County. That is the natural next step. We need to move forward with having food waste processing at an industrial scale at a centralized facility in Montgomery County. We don't currently have that capacity. The pilot programs that you just heard Council President Hucker mention that he's participating in. The other, second neighborhood is in District 1, actually, and has just begun, which is a positive, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. And then I actually participated in the launch the same week, a couple weeks ago, at Westfield Montgomery, that is participating in a business commercial program, and MCPS is also participating in that, but not at the schools, in some of their central facilities, which is not nearly as much as what we would want, but is a positive step in the right direction. All of these food waste get sent over to Prince George's County, to their facility. We are never going to solve this issue. We are never going to get to zero waste, and we're never going to deal with the related issues of zero waste and our inability to get there or get closer to there unless we have the capacity to do that in Montgomery County. And so I just wanted to note that, again, this is an example. We've made progress. We have these pilot programs on the commercial side, which is great, on the neighborhood side, which is a good start. But we need to do a lot more. And we right now, it's not a resource issue, it's a facility issue. And so we really need to move that forward. And frankly, we could use your advocacy to push for that, because that is a substantial investment and undertaking that the county needs to do. But in order to go to the next level of composting, to get beyond a couple neighborhoods here and a couple neighborhoods there, a few businesses at a time, if we want to take this to commercial full scale level of every school and every neighborhood and every business having the eligibility to participate, we need that type of facility here.
Yeah. And ironically, our recently departed DEP director, Adam Ortiz, helped set up the Prince George's digester when he was there, and that's the one we use. I just put information on the food waste composting pilot in the chat for you, Marjorie, and anybody else who wants to chime in. And let me call on Councilmember Reamer, because he was an early adopter on curbside composting.
Well, I just want to just very briefly say, first of all, I would love to ban the gas-powered blowers and other equipment. So I strongly support that. For composting, it's absolutely correct that we need a facility. However, it's inexcusable that we aren't planning one right now. That should have happened years ago. And I'm glad, I think that was Councilmember Frieza sort of made this point, or might have been Councilmember Hucker, I apologize, but we're doing these pilots. There should be a facility in the budget right now. And it's just a major impediment that we will never get a full composting program going until we have a place to take it. And that should be happening. So I'm very frustrated about that. I'd like to see that moving forward, urgently. And it's a huge, huge priority. So I hope we'll get some forward progress on that very soon. We do have land. We have a composting facility. It's where we take our yard waste. We are not allowed to take our food waste there by agreement with the surrounding neighborhood. I want the county executive to negotiate an agreement with that neighborhood to allow for us to take compost food waste there. That would be, we have the land to do it. We just need to get it done. Thank you.
Great. Any other council members would like to add any input? Okay. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments, and I look forward to the discussion you have with industry. I know the bans in DC and in some of the townships included discussions with industry beforehand. So I think there's definitely a way forward on that. And I'm glad to hear about the progress or the thoughts on composting. Thank you.
Great. Have a great evening. Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. John Boland with the Rock Creek Conservancy. John?
Hey there. Thank you for hosting this town hall. So I'm here both as the Watershed Programs Manager for Rock Creek Conservancy, but also speaking for the Montgomery County Forest Conservation Coalition that Rock Creek Conservancy works with. And my focus here tonight is to ensure that forest coverage is a priority in terms of a climate adaptation resource, a conservation matter, and a land use policy. I don't really know per se if I have a question, but I want to emphasize that as we start planning for how we can better make Montgomery County more climate resilient and ensure that there's social and environmental equity, part of that is, one, making sure that intact forest coverage remains across the county. Also focusing on watershed considerations, that being, the holistic sense that if you are removing forests in one watershed, you must replace them in that watershed, because then you lose the benefit of having them there. It's not really a good idea to remove them in one watershed and then plant them in another and consider it a equitable exchange. We'd also like to see better requirements around forest conservation easements so that they may not be as easily lost or relocated. Generally strengthening replanting ratios to ensure no net loss at a 2-to-1 ratio. And standing forest delineation must be evaluated and submitted to the Parks and Planning prior to submitting any application plan for development of a site to, again, help support those goals of ensuring no net loss and knowing that where we are losing forest is the same place where we are replenishing forest. So again, don't really have a question, but I want to emphasize the importance of these issues as a resource for climate resiliency and conservation.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boland. Any council members would like any input on that? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question from Walter Wise with the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. Mr. Wise?
Hello. I guess I'm on here. Thank you. Yes, so I am with the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, and also our organization is a member of the Climate Action Plan Coalition for Montgomery County. I wanted to ask about existing single-family homes. So existing homes contribute 25% of all the greenhouse gases in Montgomery County. And we've heard a lot about programs to require new buildings to be built more efficiently. Existing commercial buildings are going to be covered under the BEPS to trying to make them reduce their carbon and energy. But we have yet to hear any real approach to the existing single-family homes. And I appreciate that this is a very difficult problem. There are hundreds of thousands of existing single-family homes in Montgomery County. But I think it's critical that we come up with a plan not only to electrify these homes, but really it's been shown that you get the biggest bang for the buck is improving insulation and cutting leaks in homes. It's much cheaper than buying a lot of fancy new equipment. So I really would like to know if any of the council members have ideas to move forward on this large problem we have, which we really need to address if we're going to reach our climate emergency goals. Thank you.
That's a great question, Walter, and I'm glad you flagged it. Yeah, we have an awful lot of single-family homes in Montgomery County. I guess my suggestion, I had a conversation with insulators this morning about this, and with Bethesda, with Green Bank about this last night at a reception they held. I don't have a monopoly on all the good ideas, and I'm eager to hear from my colleagues and you, Walter, and a lot of the other effective advocates on this. But I think the the initiation of fencing off some of our energy tax revenue to through the Green Bank to provide those grants, loans, and technical assistance I mentioned earlier for our buildings, we should be expanded over time to include houses as well. We get the biggest bang for our buck right now, addressing our aging commercial and multifamily building stock, but there's no reason that couldn't be expanded over time. Remember, many of these funds will be used in loans, which will pay the Green Bank back and be essentially like a revolving loan fund, which can be put back on the street as well to include more projects. I also have just two other pieces of good news. One that 20 million roughly that we'll be able to use initially, 10% of our energy tax revenue. We couldn't, but the Green Bank can bond those dollars. So they'll get 4 to 5 times as much to be able to be put on the street for these energy efficiency improvements. And I'm told that through council with Senator Van Hollen's good work, there was language in the federal legislation that recently passed that will match with federal dollars any local and state dollars that go to green banks. We're unusual among the 3,000 local jurisdictions in the country that we have both a green bank and an energy tax. So I think this is a match made in heaven if we can use our green bank and actually give it the capability that it has lacked for years. It's sort of been a electric Ferrari sitting in our garage, but we're going to be able to gear it up with this new infusion of capital, bond that capital and get a federal match. We'll be able to make a lot of financing available. There are, as you know, dozens of programs out there at the federal, state, and local level to help you pay for your roof insulation, attic insulation, and new windows and other things like that. But they're not doing enough, or everybody would have taken advantage of them. So I'm eager to put these programs in place and to help work with you and other advocates to educate the public about them. But I think that's the way to go in the future, at least part of the solution. Councilmember Reamer.
Great answer. Thank you. I'll just make the point as well that efficiency improvement is important. It's important for homes. It's important for buildings, because it reduces the demand on the grid. But efficiency improvement is only a fraction of the way you get to zero carbon from that building. Most of it comes from cleaning up the grid, because even when you make that building more efficient, it's still going to be pulling down a lot of electrical demand from the grid. And really the question is, how do we have a clean grid so that whatever energy a house is using will be clean energy, non-polluting energy? And that is about generating solar, especially in Montgomery County. That's what we can do. So rooftop solar, we've got to change the economics. They're not favorable right now for a lot of homeowners to do rooftop solar. So we've got to put some more money behind rooftop solar for homeowners. We've got to change the economics for parking lot solar. It's not very favorable. That's why you don't see it. It's just not being done very often because it's just not favorable from an economic perspective for that property owner. We've got to allow solar to be installed on agricultural land, provided that it is still used in an agricultural way. Not to go on at too much length, but we could power easily 100,000 homes in Montgomery County through installations in land in the county that is zoned low density for rural and agricultural uses, while continuing to use that land for agriculture. So efficiency is a piece of it, but the bigger piece is cleaning up the grid, which comes from shutting down coal and gas by replacing it with solar and wind.
Thank you so much. Any other council members would like to add remarks about this? Okay.
Councilmember Frieza wants to get in.
That's okay. Sorry, I got having a little connectivity issue here, but if we're still talking about what we can do for existing single-family homes, and Council President Hucker mentioned this with the dedication of 10% to the Green Bank. Obviously, that's not the only funding that the Green Bank is going to have. It's going to be a revolving loan fund. They have other programs. They actually have an existing loan program already, the Clean Energy Advantage program. It's loans from $3,000 to $35,000. It's relatively new. It does exactly this. It allows for homeowners of single-family homes, townhomes, others to finance these projects. I said it when we launched that initiative and that bill. Our issue right now, I don't believe, is most people not wanting to retrofit their homes, not wanting to save costs on their monthly energy bill. It's the lack of knowledge and information on how to do it and the lack of resources in order to pay the upfront cost that ultimately will pay back the amount of money in the long run. That's where really we can step in a significant way. And I think that the dedication of 10% for those programs is a part of it, but just providing the Green Bank the ability to provide these types of loans, I really do think if we give the resources to residents, if we allow them to understand the benefits of the type of changes that we're making, we'll not only be able to address 1/4 of our carbon emissions, but we'll be able to help people save money. We'll be able to help move forward on our climate goals. So we have the programs in place already. We need to make sure that we connect residents to those programs. We need to make sure they have the type of resources that they need to expand in the way that we need them to.
Councilmember Katz.
Thank you. And to that point, the Councilmember Frieza just made, I live in a home that is 40 years old. We've lived in it for 35 years, but I live in a home that's 40 years old. And until recently, until the last several months, my wife notices things that are wrong in the house. I never do, but we replace the windows and we put additional insulation in the attic. And of course, it's added to it saves us money. It certainly helps the environment, and it adds to the livability of your home. But the bottom line is, until she pointed it out to me, and until I became educated on it, we didn't do it. I mean, it deteriorates every day. And of course, it didn't deteriorate so much that we felt that we were in a situation that we needed to change it. But once we did, we were so glad that we did. So I really believe that we need to continue to make certain that the educational part of this discussion is there, and the outreach. And I know that the Green Bank is a tremendous resource. I just met with them recently as well. And they're a tremendous resource for education as well and outreach. So this is literally a puzzle that needs to fit together, and it needs to be done one home at a time, one neighborhood at a time, so that we can get to that place where we're all going to be so very much pleased that we're there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jordan.
Great. Thank you so much, Walter. Our next question this evening comes from Mike Tidwell with the Chesapeake Climate Action. Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to try to start my video here in a second. First of all, thanks for having this town hall. Really appreciate it. This isn't my question, but I hope at some point that Councilmember Reamer will describe for us what solar grazing is. That's a phrase I learned from him just yesterday that I'd never heard of. But I do want to thank the council members, especially for supporting the community choice energy bill that passed in Annapolis. I know you guys worked really hard to get that passed, and it's really going to be a transformational opportunity for our county to take control of the grid. If you want dirty electricity, you'd have to opt in for it, and otherwise you'll get clean energy. And it's a real game changer, and I really appreciate y'all's leadership on that. I did want to say that just last week, the Maryland Commission on Climate Change formally endorsed in their annual climate report. Now, this is a commission controlled basically by Larry Hogan and his Secretary of the Maryland Department of the Environment, Ben Grumbles. They have recommended to the Maryland General Assembly that the General Assembly pass a bill mandating that all new buildings in the state starting in 2024 be fully electrified for space heating, space cooling, hot water, with the exemption only for industrial buildings. And so we are hoping that and expect that this bipartisan proposal is going to be passed by the General Assembly. So my question is, number one, do all of you support that all new buildings, including in Montgomery County, starting in 2024, be fully electrified? And two, following on to that, this issue of retrofits, you know, our green bank presently spends a lot of money putting brand new gas furnaces and gas hot water systems in houses every day. Like today, several have gone in. These are systems that are going to have a design life of 20 or 30 years when scientists say we have to cut our emissions in half on fossil fuels by 2030. So I'm wondering if, in addition to electrifying all new houses, do you agree that we need to rapidly get our green bank and all our county resources to stop subsidizing new gas systems and quickly move to all electric heating and cooling and hot water? And yes, it's somewhat more expensive, and some of the unions and the gas companies will say, well, that penalizes low income folks. But thankfully, my city of Tacoma Park just in October launched a grant program that is only for electrification. So it's for helping people switch out their systems, and fossil fuel systems are ineligible. And to compensate that for low and moderate income folks, they make the grant substantially higher for people who earn the median income or lower. So I would encourage you to look to Tacoma Park and their grant program for this Electrify Everything, including retrofit. And I hope you'll join me in encouraging our green bank to stop using our tax dollars and grants for new gas systems in the year 2021, 2022, when we need to move past it.
Thank you, Mike. Great comments. I would love to hear more about the Governor's Commission's recommendation for all electric buildings by 2024. If we're not already on that path, we should be on that path. Absolutely. I do think the Green Bank should have plenty of options from what they can finance and not have to finance, gas and natural gas powered heat. So it seems like they ought to be able to choose from a variety of projects and not need to do that. So I'm glad you raised that for our attention, and I'd like to follow up on that for sure and see how we can tighten that up, especially as I'm very excited about this infusion of funding that my colleagues have proposed. I think it's an absolutely marvelous idea, and it's going to help us really move the ball forward, but let's make sure we're putting that money behind the right projects. I'll take you up on your offer to mention what solar grazing is. It's the practice of grazing sheep beneath solar panels. And it's happening all over the country. The sheep tend to the soil and they tend to the vegetation. And in fact, you don't have to disturb the soil. So if you do it for a long time, you can actually capture carbon in the soil instead of releasing it with constant tilling. And so it's a way of combining agriculture and solar in one use of the land. And that is the future. Like we could do that. We import almost all of our lamb that we eat, like 90% of the land that we eat is imported. We could raise that right here locally with solar grazing while generating solar power for our homes. It's just an absolute win-win, and I hope we'll get to that point soon. So thank you for your advocacy on that important issue.
Mike, did you say the state recommendation is only for new industrial buildings?
No, it's for all new buildings, residential and commercial. Good. But it exempts industrial facilities because they steel making, cement. Some of these industrial practices are so energy intensive. There's no electrified alternative.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lot better than I thought. Okay, good.
Great. Would any other council members like to add any comments? Okay. It looks like our next question comes from Marta Merzmick. It looks like I'll be asking this question or helping ask this question for Marta. And the question is, she's interested in how we all could get involved and what resources and education are available to us, meaning the community.
Councilmember Katz.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And I guess the beginning of the answer is the Climate Action Plan, which was mentioned earlier, includes a substantial amount of information on this and what we all can do. I mentioned earlier, for me personally and for others, education and outreach is also a large component of the climate work plan moving forward. So I would suggest that you read that and then And then if you have additional suggestions beyond that, to please let us know. But that's a good basis for the discussion. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hans?
I was just going to say, please investigate your local Sierra Club chapter, your Chesapeake Climate Action chapter. There are so many organizations that are active and involved here in the county. And, there literally are probably more than 100 ways that you could be involved. So spend a little time, starting with some of the bigger groups, and you'll network into the more localized ones, and they all make a difference. Every single method of participating really does make a difference. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I'll just add, even if you look in the chat right now, there are several of the organizations that are doing this work every day, providing information on upcoming meetings and upcoming events. So there are lots of ways to get involved, incredible community-based organizations that are doing great work and frankly holding us accountable for living up to what we're saying here and making sure that we're actually following through and moving the needle on our ambitious goals.
Great. Any other comments from council members? Council President Hugger? Got it.
I think that covered it. Good suggestions.
Thank you. So the next question comes from Mahmoud Al Darwish with Echo Forza USA. Mahmoud?
My video is disabled. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes. Thank you.
All right, that's hold on. All right, great, good enough. Well, first of all, thank you very much for providing this forum. I've listened to a little over an hour, and all these hot buttons were hit. My page is notes are in there, just amazing. It's like I almost don't have to say anything. But really, the one thing that I think I can add is in the domain of transportation. I should introduce myself briefly, first of all. I'm a cultural anthropologist and a technologist. And my interest in this has to do with behavior. In 2020, we had an unprecedented event. And one of the features of that event is that everyone was asked to stay home until we could figure out exactly what was going on with respect to transmission of the COVID-19 virus. And the result of that is that thermal imaging over cities all over the world demonstrated that we were actually dropping our thermal footprint or carbon emissions in a matter of 3 months. And obviously, if you get all the cars off the road, you don't have a footprint there. Now, the economics of that are also understood. We can't shut an economy down forever in order to wait for the environment to recover. But I'm certain that an awful lot of the people who were going back to work didn't really have to go. And school buses, somebody mentioned public transport and school buses. 1,400 school buses in Montgomery County are still running on diesel. So they're not even running clean fossil fuel or anything like that. They're running on diesel. So somehow that's got to be changed. And I think that it was imperfect to have kids learning from school, doing distance learning, and for all of us to be working from home for this immense amount of time. But there were some very positive outcomes. PricewaterhouseCoopers, a former employer of mine, have told all their employees, don't come to the office if you don't have to, permanently. That's an extraordinary statement. And they're heavily invested in real estate, as many are. But we have to somehow look at the forward plan and see if we can rethink a lot of things. To go back to 2019, as if it didn't really happen, or 2020 didn't happen, is a mistake. 2020 happened, and it provided an extraordinary test bed for how modifications can be made in the future. This speaks to the prioritization that Sydney Katz came up with, Councilmember Katz came up with, and others have mentioned. And I think one of the things that we could do as a priority is to reduce the demand. It's a horrible thing to do, to tell people you have to reduce the demand. Don't run out of the house every time you need a $5 object that you can wait a couple of days for, consolidate our errands. This kind of thing is kind of no-brainer. So my question is this kind of sea change something that has to happen in school, where it's just like the composting concept is taught at the grassroots level in schools, or are we hopelessly consigned to simply trying to find cheaper, cleaner energy only and not reducing consumption?
I'll start, I mean, we have to reduce consumption, you know, and I think we won't go back to the way things were with pre-COVID as far as people are going to work from home. You know, they're going to want to continue to work from home. And even if everybody just worked from home one day a week, that would be a 20% reduction in their, you know, vehicle trips if they're driving, you know, single driver, single occupancy car. So we've got to keep this going. We've got to support this culture of hybrid work, and I believe we will. You know, we have to have efficiency in order to make it possible to transition to clean energy. But I would say, you know, when we transition to clean energy, people can live their lives. Like, we don't have to tell people that they have to keep their thermostat, you know, they have to stay cold in the winter and hot in the summer. You know, we can tell people that they can live their lives if we generate the clean energy that it takes to power their lives. That's why I'm so passionate about generating solar, because I want people to be able to live the lives that they are accustomed to. And I don't think we have to, you know, tell people to settle for less. I think we have to educate people about the impact of efficiency and why it's easy and why that is something that they can participate in. But I think that it is possible. And I believe that we as advocates should, you know, help facilitate an understanding that, you know, for us to save the climate does not mean that you have to stop living the life that you've chosen. Because if you power your home with clean energy and you power your car with clean energy, you know, and you have an efficient home that you live in, guess what? That will solve the problem. So, you know, I guess that's my philosophy about it.
Councilmember Frieza.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I agree with what was, you know, much of what Councilmember Reamer just said. I also think there's a few things that were highlighted that I just want to hit before I forget. One is the electrification of the bus fleet of MCPS. Fortunately, we actually are moving in that direction. We're actually going to be one of the largest school systems that is going to electrify our bus fleet, which is, you know, significant. And you know, like everything else, we'd like to move faster in that direction. It takes time. It's a lot of buses. It's a large system, the 14th largest in the country, but you know, that is a positive step in that direction. And in terms of teleworking, I am proud of the fact that during the pandemic, we did very early on provide small microloans and grants to nonprofit organizations and to businesses to help them transition. Some businesses and nonprofits are so small they couldn't provide the tablets and the headsets and the appropriate ergonomical chair for somebody to sit at their home for 8 hours a day. And we did provide those loans as part of our business relief grant program. I authored that telework assistance program. We worked together with the Economic Development Corporation. It was wildly popular. There was a question of, you know, how many people were actually going to take this up. It was extremely popular. We saw that there were a lot of people who were interested in it, and it's just one example of the way that we could help organizations that wanted to move in this direction and just needed a little bit of help, a little bit of support. We're talking about really small micro grants here. County government's a large employer, thousands of employees, one of the largest employers, and we have a significant telework program now that has grown substantially. And I say a lot, we should be leading with the power of our example, not just the example of our power. And as a big employer, we should be doing that as a big property owner, as a big tenant, as you know, a large consumer of energy. I mean, there are a lot of ways that we could be leading, and certainly teleworking is a big piece of that. I do think when it comes to the issue of teleworking, one, I don't think everybody's going to telework. I think that we are seeing an acceleration, like so many things in COVID, where the economy was moving in a certain direction quite slowly, and COVID overwhelmingly pushed it in a direction I think it was already going, where there was more of an interest in teleworking and working remotely, and having people working in different parts of the area and parts of the country. And there's some major disruption in the economy as a result of that. And we thought we might have had 10 or 15 years to figure it out, and it turns out we had 10 or 15 months to figure it out. I think we're still figuring this out. We have a wage crisis right now that we're trying to figure out in the economy. But yes, we need to make it easier to telework. Yes, we need to make sure that happens. But I also think the biggest thing that we can do in the county, the greatest powers that we have, are land use and transportation. It's not just about helping people to work from home because it's easy to work from home. It's making people want to work from home because they like where they live, and making sure that those who don't work from home work close to home so that their commute isn't 45 minutes or an hour. That's a quality of life issue. That's an environmental sustainability issue. That's an equity issue. It's an economic development issue. And so we talk about livable, walkable, accessible communities. That is about carbon. That is about quality of life. That is about equity and access to transportation. And I do think to a certain degree, we have to recognize that we can only nurture nature. We're a large government, and I think we need to take responsibility for the powers that we have, which are tremendous and significant. But we also have to have a level of humility and understand that, in the scheme of the globe, we can't change every trend on our own. And so we have to make sure that we are providing, really attractive places for people to move and communities to live in, and places for businesses to locate, and creating a lifestyle that they're going to want, not telling them this is a lifestyle you must have because of it. And then the last piece where I really agree with the point that you were making, Mahmoud, and that Councilman Reamer was noting, we need to educate people on the impact of the decisions that they make. I think that largely when people are empowered with the knowledge of the impact, they make good choices. I think sometimes we don't realize, what does it mean to have free parking? What does it mean to charge for transit and not to drive on most roads? How does that happen? What are the decisions that we make in terms of having dense communities around transit versus sprawl development? I mean, these are major choices, and we are in a significant way subsidizing decisions oftentimes that we don't agree with, or that we don't like, or outcomes at least that we have concerns about. But sometimes we don't realize the direct connection between the everyday choices that we are making, both in policy and in government, but also individual behaviors and individual actors. And I do think that there is a significant role in public education for that. When I was young, it was a big effort on recycling, because that was a novel idea that everybody recycled in their homes. And we came home and we told our parents about what you could and you couldn't recycle. And frankly, we got people still trying to figure that out, and a hardworking team that's still sorting out, what you can and you can't recycle. And we need to be taking those issues to a dramatically higher level to understand every choice that we make has an impact. It has a cost. There's a carbon footprint to it. And the question is, do you want to be, part of the problem? Do you want to be part of the solution? And what does that mean? What are the choices that we're going to have to make? But I think ultimately people are going to have to make those choices on their own. It's our job to educate them and to make those choices just a little bit easier for
them. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Mr. President. And so much has already been said. And in fact, if you looked at my notes, I think Councilmember Frieza actually looked at my notes too, because I have recycling on those as well. But a hybrid is what we're going to have to be going to, and we are. We should never go back to where we were in 2019 or 2018. And of course, 2020 proved that we could do things differently. We didn't want to do things differently, and it was for a reason we didn't like, but we did learn how to do them differently. And I think that's what we're going to have to go back to. We'll go back to a hybrid type of situation. But let's face facts, some industries can't stay at home and perform their job. If you're a firefighter or a restaurant worker or whatever, then you're going to need to go into a place in order to serve the public that you need to be serving. So we need to look at what we can do and what we can't do along the way. The other thing that Councilmember Friedson mentioned this, but recycling. What we did for recycling is we made it easy. We made it inexpensive or free. It's not really free. You pay for it, but it feels like it's free because you don't reach out and pay for it each time you recycle something. And we educated our young, as he was talking about earlier, we educated our young. I remember my kids coming home, and you would have thought that I had done something horrible if I threw the newspaper in the trash. And for years, that's where the newspaper went. But it became the way of life, and we don't even think about it today, that we're doing it that way. And then I think what this council just did, I guess this week, last week, the weeks run together, is that we made transit free till July, and that's what we needed to do as well, because every time someone got onto a bus prior to COVID, they had to reach in their pocket and pay to you take that ride. When they got in their car, they were paying for that road, but they didn't have to pay for it right that moment. So I think we need to do it in a way that makes it easy, that makes it inexpensive, and that makes it available to all people so that they can do the right thing. People want to do the right thing. It's just how do we get them to do the right thing and make it easy for them to do it. So thank you.
Well, this horse has been beaten to death a long time ago. The only thing I agree with all my colleagues, they all have had great things to say. Nobody's mentioned local sourcing, which is not going to be transformative in this area. You know, nobody's building TVs and cars in Montgomery County, but they're all things that we can do. And I think, Mahmoud, you suggested some of this. We all, can buy a number of products from our local vendors. We all can spend our money locally. We all can, we have competing incentives, unfortunately, that we're not in control of. Our farmers in the ag reserves too often have federal subsidies for corn and soybeans that might get shipped across the country or to China, and not to grow local vegetables and fruits that could be served to our kids in our schools. That's something a number of us have worked on, for going back years. So there's a lot we could do to just be more conscious and not to order every, as you said, $5, $10 expenditure on Amazon to be brought here, on a plane in a truck or a shipping container, but actually be purchased locally where our money stays in the local economy, but also we're lowering the carbon footprint of getting it to your doorstep.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Herb Simmons with the Climate Mobilization. Herb?
Uh-oh. I gotta go. You're trying to intimidate me before I start. You may succeed, we'll see, but
never.
A couple points I want to make. First, I need to once again commend you, and particularly those members who are on council, who passed the first climate emergency of any large government in the world in 2017.
I think it was your idea.
There are now that may have said something to do with it. There are now over 1,000 communities in the world. But what that means is that the whole world community is looking to see what action is being taken. And for a whole variety of reasons, some of which I put at your feet, but others at the executive and procedural and budget and elections, the amount of work that's been done in reducing greenhouse gases over the past 4 years has not been commensurate with the need. You've reduced greenhouse gases, and the numbers are very fragmentary, by only about a quarter or maybe even a fifth of the 8% per year on average that would be needed to get to that. So one question and comment and just plea is for you collectively as the council to meet with the county executive. You've got the cap. It is imperfect. I completely agree with that. I will not defend a lot of it, but there's enough in there, and there are enough ideas that you have and ideas that you presented over the last few weeks, the green bank tax and the BEPS and other things like that to put together a pack like Washington, D.C. did. They did a BEPS, but they did 5 other major items at the same time in one bill or in a package of bills. Model that effort technically to see whether it allows us and enables us to catch up to our goal of meeting that 80%, which would require about a third of the 80% to be done, roughly, and then make a commitment to put it in a bill in the next weeks and months and do everything you can to pass that in cooperation with the county executive. That was the second thing I want to say, though, is that in those 4 years since you adopted the emergency, and I think we all know this, but I want to stress this, the objective indicators of what's happening at the global level on climate have been much worse than almost any scientist has projected or any scientific study. It's so dire that I don't want to say any more except that an equal focus needs to be done on maximizing the resilience of this county to all of the potential impacts that may occur. Someone said earlier, the enormous migration that's going to occur. You may have a massive increase in federal employment to address climate. All sorts of things I don't have time to go to in my describe in my 2 minutes. The Thrive document, and I say this as somebody who some of you may know was head of long-range planning for the state of New Jersey for 10 years. The Thrive document explicitly says, it's not Herb Simmons saying this, that a major purpose, the purpose of the document is to analyze and anticipate these larger forces. And they mention, autonomous vehicles and automation and all these kinds of things, and of course, climate change and so forth. And then they don't address them at all. I've never seen such planning malpractice in my life. I have no idea why that is the case. So I ask you either to send that back to planning to address it, or maybe more significantly, to create a special blue ribbon commission that's charged within, say, 12 months to look at all these big forces that are affecting the supply chain stuff and the pandemics and the oil shortages and all this sort of stuff, and come back with a plan of action and analysis that involves the residents of Montgomery County, and have them come back by January 1st, 2023, with a report on how this county, one of the most wealthy and sophisticated in the country, can best prepare to deal with the onslaught that we're likely to face, but we don't know how and in what way. So those are my 2 requests for you. Get yourself together, get together with the executive, put together a big package. I don't really care what you have in it. Just model it that it gets us there and it's equitable to the residents of the county. And then find a way through a commission or otherwise to get on top of the big forces that are influencing us. And I'm not suggesting that what's in Thrive is bad. It's important. The land use stuff is critical. You've all focused on that. But that's sort of little picture, important picture, but Thrive doesn't get at the big picture. So that's what my plea is to you tonight. And any response would be appreciated.
You think land use is a little picture? I'm surprised. Anyway, Hans?
Well, Herb, I appreciate your advocacy and your passion, and you have helped pull this county along, and I'm grateful for that. I don't really agree with your comments very much. Thrive is urgent. We've got to pass it now. We can't send it back for more study and then have it task forced and maybe pass it one day. We got to do it. It's past time. It should have been done already. So we got to get Thrive done. Thrive is the crucial land use vision. I read your piece that you co-wrote. I think you identified a lot of issues that also a community should be thinking about, but they are not what Thrive is supposed to be about. And Thrive does not focus on many of, it should not focus on those things. Thrive is not, let's write a document about all future concerns. Thrive is, let's talk about how land is going to be used in Montgomery County. And you have to go with what you know is going to be true rather than what, might possibly be true. So I regret that I'm not able to, embrace the gist of what you're asking for here. I think you have identified a lot of important issues that we also need to be working on. I will appeal to you as an advocate, as a leader in the community. The more you can give us specific, actionable proposals, the easier it is for us to get things done. And we don't have not only a monopoly on good ideas, we're just people like you, and we're doing our best to think about what the best steps are. So, I implore everyone, please, let's talk about all electric buildings by 2024. Like there, boom. Let's talk about devoting the energy tax to funding the Green Bank. Boom. These are concrete steps that we can take. And I know when we get those kinds of ideas coming to us, we'll take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members that would like to add any comments before we move on? Okay.
I doubt any of us disagree with the substance of what you're saying, Herb. It's more about the process of like what we do first. And I'd agree. We should just pass Thrive because it's been through, countless revisions and comments and meetings, and we just had 75 witnesses last time. We have more to come, and the last thing I think we want to do is have an extended discussion of like how we're going to address the supply chain, which is a pretty complicated thing these days. I think we should do what we can now, move that forward. We need to have a general plan that's actually accurate and functional, unlike the one from 1993. But yeah, there's no reason we can't. Montgomery County is full of brilliant people like yourself, and there's no reason we can't get them in the room. And I would love to read anything they can put together on addressing these longer term issues as well. It's just a question of sequence and not feeling like we have to do everything in the same time at the same document.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question comes from Doris Nguyen, and I will actually be helping ask this question for her. She's with the Glen Echo Heights Mobilization. Her question is, what will the council do to educate the general county public on the importance of bold climate action?
Hi, Doris.
Yeah, I was actually, if I could say just a second, each one of you is a leader in the community. We're counting on you to go out and talk to the average Montgomery County resident, not just the activists. You see here, everybody here is really committed. We're doing everything we can. We're talking to our friends, et cetera, and other voters. But we also count on you as council members to talk to the average Montgomery County resident and see what is important about climate change. Why is it important to support your legislation that you're going to introduce and things that will make a difference throughout the county? And I think that's really important. A town hall is good. It's very good. But you need to have a lot more of public events that you are face-to-face with voters to inform them, to ask them to support the hard things that need to be done, including funding, including prioritization, because I know that's, going to be where the rubber meets the road, which is where do we put our money? So thank you very much. Just I'm going to ask if any of you have some out-of-the-box ideas on how we can get this done, how you can personally lead in those efforts. Thank you.
Well, doesn't the climate action plan kind of call for a, like not an academy, but kind of a grassroots, organizing effort to facilitate its ongoing implementation? That seems like it would be. But you want out of the box ideas. One of the things I would love to do, I've always wanted to do, and I hope to do one day, is have neighborhood tree planting teams that go door to door and work with residents to figure out where on properties can a tree be planted, and then have the county plant the tree. Like you're saying, door to door grassroots engagement to fulfill environmental objectives. I think that would be enormously helpful. Getting people to compost, curbside composting. When you do curbside composting, you learn about all these issues. It becomes part of your routine, just like recycling was a kind of a conceptual step forward, a daily battle for some as well. But I'll pass it to my colleagues.
I think there's a ton of things we ought to do. We had the and thanks for your advocacy, Doris. You've been in this fight a long time. But when we had the Maryland Health Exchange stood up as part of Obamacare, we had one of my former staff who's now high-ranking advisor at the planning. He was one of like an army of people that were hired to show up at churches and synagogues on the weekend and inform people about, hey, you could sign up for Obamacare. We didn't get that granular at testing and vaccination because they required more sort of clinical training and equipment, other things like that. But something like climate change, there's no reason we shouldn't be in churches and synagogues and mosques every weekend talking to people about where they could put a tree in their yard, for example, like Hans says, or all the different actions they can take, passing out cards like I just showed about how you can compost your food, or many other things. There's lots of things in the climate action plan, as was an answer to a previous question, that people are never going to read. And you have to, as they say, put the hay down where the goats can get it. And, just hand over actionable small items to people in ways that make them feel good. I think we have 1 million people in the county that want to do something about the climate, but they're not going to spend hours reading a thick report to do it. They have to have it handed to them. And it has to be, it shouldn't cost them a ton of money to do it either. It should be easy and present and allow them to just feel like they're part of a larger movement. Councilmember Frieza.
Yeah, thanks, Doris, again for your advocacy. Really appreciate it. And if you had asked me in the beginning of this who was going to be my colleague who said put the hay down where the goats can get it, I probably would have picked Cindy Katz, not Council President Hucker. But you get surprised in a positive way every day at a council event. So appreciate that. But
I think I'm the Midwesterner here, Bucko.
Yeah, that's true. Although Gaithersburg, when Cindy Katz has mentioned to us, looked more like parts of the Midwest than it does today.
And inspired Country Road, Take Me Home.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where it was done.
But I digress. So, Council President Hucker noted this a little bit, but, we talked earlier about teleworking and some of the disruptive changes that COVID has created. I think it showed us also as a county government what we're good at and what we're not good at. And we realized that we're not good at communicating with residents on their level, in their terms, on their turf. This is just not something for ordinary folks that we have traditionally done well as a local government. And we're not unique. I don't think Montgomery County, Maryland is not as good and other places are so much better than us. I just think local government generally struggles at this. And we were exposed, I think in a negative way, but also to a certain extent in a positive way, because it really made us show what we had and how well we were communicating, whether it comes to small businesses, whether it comes to ordinary residents, particularly residents in particular communities. We are not communicating with them well. I think we have made drastic steps in a positive direction during COVID, but we were kind of creating that as we were going. And I think we can be much better about that. We can be much more intentional about that. And I do think that, the idea of using government and using our Office of Community Partnerships, doing the type of things that we did with the census count, the type of, we went door to door, the type of things that we did with, vaccine availability and with testing capabilities. And we went into communities and we knocked on apartment doors and we showed up at churches and we showed up at community centers and we, told our residents what they needed to know because it was about life and death. And we told them what access to resources they had. Because their family was desperately relying on it. I think we need to treat climate with that same level of urgency. And so I think that's absolutely true. I will say, however, that no matter how much we improve, we are never going to be on the forefront at the county government level. We're always going to be catching up to community advocates like you, Doris, and community organizations like so many that are represented on this call. And so I think it's going to take both. We're going to have to step up our game and get better as a county government and be much more proactive in communicating with residents than we've traditionally been. But it's always going to be a grassroots effort. We're always going to have to try to catch up to where you're pushing us. And I hope that it doesn't turn into a situation where the county is the only one leading this effort, because I think we need the grassroots advocacy and the organizations and the boots on the ground to really be leading this effort, and the county government needs to step up in a better way than we have to reach the folks who need to be reached and have a level of urgency that I think we had during this pandemic, and I think we need a whole lot more of.
Thank you.
Councilmember Katz, I think you have something to
Thank you. And Doris, thank you for the question. And I have a confession. I had never heard the expression about the goats with the hay. I really, I've learned much this evening, and that's certainly one of them. So I really do appreciate that. But I think, and it's not thinking necessarily, we need to think outside the box and inside the box. We need to, as I mentioned earlier, we need to keep things simple. We need to keep them easy, and we need to keep them inexpensive. And I think that is how we can get to the better place that we all want to get to. Sometimes we think that everyone is in the same situation that we're in, that everyone is on a computer, that everyone is paying attention to all of these so very important topics. And candidly, there are people that are not. There are people that don't use computers. There are people that still read a newspaper, not online, that they like the newspaper in front of them. So we need to be able to reach them as well. We need to be able to educate and work with them. And I think we need to always go back to the basics. I'm a football coach used to always start out and say, this is a football. He wanted his team to remember what they're after. And we need to continue to do that as well. We need to make certain that everyone, from our youngest person to our oldest person, is a part of the solution to what we need for what we are doing. And I really believe it gets back to the statement that we need to keep it simple, we need to keep it easy, we need to keep it inexpensive. Thanks. Thank you for the question.
Great. Thank you. Doris, did you have anything else to add or say?
No, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you so much. I just want to let everybody know the time is now 8:45 and we still have several questions left. We do have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. Our next question this evening comes from Doug Boucher. Doug?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Doug Boucher. I'm a retired climate scientist, and I'm with Poolsville Green. I appreciate Council President Hucker pointing out the commitment that the Council made to reduce emissions 80% by 2027, and also Council members Frieza and Albornoz pointing out that it's important to hold them accountable. We've already had 4 of the 10 years between 2017 and 27 have already passed. And there is apparently no data showing how much we have reduced emissions. At least it has not been made public. Ironically, the claim of a 19% reduction in emissions, all that reduction was made between 2005 and 2012.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So that's like claiming that you've hit a single when in fact, you want to start on first base and you don't want to bother going up to bat. So my question for the members of the council is, how are we doing compared to, as Herb Simmons said, we need to reduce by 8% per year. How much have we reduced emissions so far in 4 of the 10 years? And if you can't answer that question, when will you be able to answer it? How long are we going to have to wait before we get the numbers of what has been accomplished and what remains to be done?
That's a great question. And Doug, thanks for all your leadership in this whole area, since I don't see you enough, and many of your comments online that I read often. I wish I knew, honestly. Part of, I think, good policy making is being honest about what we know and what we don't know. We get our assessment, and maybe I wish there were an alternative, but from the Council of Governments, and I sit on their board, and they do it infrequently, and I'll ask if we can accelerate that. But last time I asked, we won't know our emissions until I think it's 2023 off the top of my head, but it's not this year, and I don't think it's next year. So that puts us in a bind because, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have a climate action plan that gave us the quantitative analysis that we demanded from the consultant. And in the council briefing with the consultant and DEP, I asked the consultant to go back and do that and DEP to support that. And I was told to go pound sand. So I don't think we're going to get that quantitative analysis from DEP or from the Council of Governments. I wish we could anytime soon. They're under contract. That's just not in the plans. Personally, I don't think there's any reason to think we're dropping by 8% a year. We haven't made those changes. We expected to get, I was going to put in a benchmarking bill in 2019. I was told not to. We thought we would get a BEPS bill in 2019. That was the rationale not to put in a benchmarking bill. We didn't get it till mid-2021. So we're going to pass BEPS soon. We just got it. It has to be fixed. I don't know why we got a bill that is unworkable. We haven't put enough electric buses on the street. We haven't purchased enough. The council has added more electric buses to our fleet every year in the budget that we receive, but that's not nearly enough. The school system has an ambitious plan, but it's just getting started. And what's left? That's buildings, and in composting, as we discussed earlier, we're far behind on. So that's like 1, 2, and 3 or 4 of our sources, right? So I'm not real optimistic about where we are. We're behind. We're certainly behind our goal. Oh, and we haven't closed the incinerator, the greatest point source that we have. That was promised as well. Hasn't happened. So that's still churning out lots of carbon every year. So I think we need to keep our foot on the accelerator and make all these things happen because we've lost too much time. I'm very frustrated about that.
Any of the other council members want to speak to this about how we're going to hold you accountable?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what the council president just said. It is frustrating. I think we share your frustration. It's hard to judge how well we're doing if we don't have the data to back it up. And we can't hold ourselves accountable. We can't do our jobs as council members to hold the executive branch accountable on the data, and that does make it challenging for all of us. It makes it challenging for you as citizens, doing your job to hold us accountable and judging us accordingly as we ought to be judged. And it makes it hard to do our job. So I think certainly we've expressed that frustration. We share that frustration. My understanding is between 2015 and 2018, the reduction was about 8.5%, the 19% from 2005 to 2018. But even with that, it doesn't break down the data to a level that's current. And without current data, we can't really to do what we need to do. Even if that were true, it's 8.5% in 3 or 4 years. We need to be doing 8.5% every single year. And obviously, for a large swath of that, we were either doing very little or going potentially even in the wrong direction. We have done a lot. We do have a lot of ideas, but what we lack is an understanding of what the best bang for the buck is. We've talked quite a bit about that. That was the idea of the consultant to help us with that. We didn't exactly move in that direction. I do think we are going to make a significant impact with the new building standards. BEPS is before us. We have the green building energy tax credits. We have some of the work of the Green Bank, but even the Green Bank. The 10% is dedicated from the energy tax. So the energy tax is largely collected on the consumption off of a grid that isn't as clean as we would like it to be. So that's a challenge, as well. So obviously we're not doing nearly as well as we would want to, and I think a big concern that you've raised is one that I think all of us share, which is we need more current and more accurate data to be able to do our jobs better, for you as citizens to hold us accountable, and for us as legislators to provide the level of oversight of the executive branch that is the core of our job.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Any Council President Hugger, did you have something else to say?
Well, just you're asking a very good question, Doug, and you're making me think a little more deeply about it. I contacted COG to find out how quickly we can get this, and I was told, well, we can't really between until like 2023. I think was the answer. It wasn't soon, but if we just get a multi-year analysis too, it's not going to be very accurate if so many of our cars stayed off the road for a year and a half during COVID, and now that's that's beginning to end. So I think we'll have an artificial drop when we were all during the lockdown, and now that most of those cars are going back on the roads, it's not going to really tell. So I'm going to contact them and push to see what we can do to get year by year numbers as well, because I think we might have a drop and then a big bump in the this year while we're coming out of COVID and people are going back to work.
Let me just add, Doug, you've made a great point. I think it's plain that there aren't clear metrics of accountability, and so as a result, there's just a lot of confusion, and there's a lack of focus. And so, we need to have that information published, but I think we've got to have a clear action plan that we're trying to deliver on. Personally, I think that really could be around clean energy production. I think it would be far more manageable for us to set a goal of how much clean energy we want to produce in the county. Not the only metric we would hold ourselves accountable to, but a very clear one that with a very explicit outcome that's beneficial, and then work our way towards that goal. And I think we've got to have goals that we can actually hold ourselves accountable to delivering. Otherwise, everyone just ends up, sort of saying it's not my fault. So thank you for all your work. Really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much. Just a reminder, everybody, we have a little bit under 5 minutes left. Our next question comes from Diana Younts with the Tacoma Park Mobilization Environment Committee. Diana?
Hi, thank you. And I'm also part of the Montgomery County Climate Action Plan Coalition. And I've been a little bit of a one-note person lately, in that I've heard lots of complaints about what the executive has not done, and the slowness in getting the buildings, the BEPS bill to you, and the Building Energy Performance Standards bill. And but you've had it for 8 months, and I'd really like to see you take action and pass that bill. I think it's important to also have the Green Bank bill, and with both bills, not in the bill itself actually for BEPS, but in the enabling, in the regulations that come from it, that you will be able to comment on, that you set the targets stringent enough so that fossil fuel will not be really one of the options for meeting the targets of the BEPS bill. I think the Green Bank also should not be able to foster fossil fuel based energy systems in its programs. I know one barrier to that is that it's difficult for low-income multifamily units to actually transition immediately off of gas, because when you're talking about retrofits, they can be expensive. But I would like to see the council prioritize having programs, and the Green Bank bill is part of it, to really facilitate low-income people being able to be at the forefront of this transition to all electric and off of fossil fuels, so that they won't be left with the burden of being the last to get off gas systems and paying the high costs that will go along with that. And I would like to hear from the council a commitment to move quickly on both of those bills, and to also move quickly with helping single-family residents transition off of fossil fuels.
Well, Diana, I know you and I have talked about this a lot. The last thing I think you want is for us to pass a bill that's just window dressing and doesn't achieve its goals. So particularly, we have, as you know, lots of, not enough, but a number of multifamily and commercial property owners like Tower and like Duffy. I was talking to representatives of both yesterday at the Green Bank event, and that have voluntarily invested millions and millions of their own dollars to build very efficient energy efficient buildings that use renewable energy, some of which are LEED Platinum and were leaders in their field. And the fact is that the vast majority of our building stock, so much of our older building stock hasn't done that voluntarily like those folks have. So if you're going to have legislation that makes those owners who have chosen not to spend millions of dollars because, either they don't have it or they've chosen not to, and you enforce it with $1,000 fine, you're not going to get a whole lot of performance, which is why, I appreciate your support for the Green Buildings Now bill that will provide the financing to actually make the BEPS bill work, because there's no point in passing policy and then being disappointed that we patted ourselves on the back and we didn't achieve our goal. So we have a work session on December 9th next week, this time next week, to work on BEPS and the financing bill, which we have been working on for at least, years at some point, but more robustly the last 6 months. And I think we'll get them both passed now that, and they'll result in a BEPS bill that actually works and isn't just window dressing. I was going to tell you something else, but I forget your second question.
A commitment for passing them, a timeline for passing them.
That's my timeline. So, if we had received it in a workable bill in 2019, or if I had been allowed to put in a benchmarking bill that I had written and still sitting on my desk, we would have a benchmarking bill in place now, and that would, I think, engendered more less conflict and more trusting relationship during a time of economic expansion, which could have allowed us to pass, I think, a BEPS bill sooner. But, I was told not to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'd also just like to emphasize that a lot of this is education. I mean, building owners, we've done a lot of research on this, and there are a lot of tools available to building owners and tax incentives and grants from the Maryland Energy Administration, the recent tax incentives at the county level, at the federal level, that we've been walked through scenarios where building owners actually they're really not out of pocket any money, or in a very quick time frame, they're not out of pocket money because of these various financing options that, these major buildings have. And I know I'm not being very detailed, but I'd be happy to walk you through one of those scenarios. But I do think it's a matter of just people not being very willing to transition from business models that they currently have, and they need to be educated about transitioning to different business models and take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that they will have to have cleaner, more valuable buildings, and have the cost savings along with it.
I'm really familiar with so many of those programs. I was an original co-sponsor of the Empower Bill when I was in the Assembly. They have had some impact, and they haven't had enough impact, as you know. And yes, we have hundreds of building owners, if not thousands, and many individual building owners that might have inherited a 4-bedroom or a 4-unit apartment from grandma who passed away, and they now live in Florida. They're not very familiar with the county or the state incentives. I agree with you. But the ones who own a lot of properties like Southern Management, K Management, and others that own a lot of our old, leaky, inefficient building stock, they're very well aware of these programs, and people have approached them many times, and they're not they're just not in a position, they're not willing to spend millions and millions of dollars to upgrade their buildings with the current incentives, which is why we're all trying to change the game together. So hopefully we'll get these bills passed in the next few month or so, and they'll take advantage of them. But I've spoken to them, and it's very attractive to them to put this amount of financing on the street locally.
Great. Thank you, Diana. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? I would just like to say that we'll make the Tacoma Park Mobilization Environment Committee will make a commitment to you, if you pass the BEPS bill, that we will work with the state legislature next year and give Montgomery County the authority to have a penalty that is actually, something that would be useful in enforcement of BEPS.
No, I think you should do that. I've spent a lot of time in the legislature. I would not count on that bill easily passing in 1 year. That's all I would say.
Great. Thank you so much.
Pass by 2026.
Or 2046, maybe.
Got it. Thank you so much, Diana. Actually, we've run out of time for this evening. So, Council President Hucker, I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you for closing remarks.
Okay. Well, thanks to all my colleagues who were able to join us tonight, first of all, and thanks so much to Keith and Amanda who joined us, and you, Jordan, and all of our staff who put this together. This, I think, was a really important step forward. We've been talking about doing it for a while. Obviously, we couldn't cover everything in just 2 hours. So I want you to know that for those of you who didn't get a chance to ask your questions live, thanks for your patience. We'll make sure that someone gets back to you with a written answer to your question. And if anyone has follow-up questions on anything that we said tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of my colleagues, and we'll get back to you as well. We're all here to assist you. I think we all want the same thing. We're all frustrated, you heard tonight, about the lack of a more rapid progress in a lot of these areas. Please make sure to tune in next Tuesday, December 7th, for the public hearing on Bill 4421, which is the Green Buildings Now Act, a joint Government Operations and Transportation Environment Committee work session is scheduled for Thursday, December 9th. And also on December 9th, the T&E Committee will have a work session on the Building Energy Performance Standards Bill, BEPS bill. So we'll take 2 bites at these next week with the work session and the public hearing, and we want to hear from all of you to move these forward. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much.
With our staff to start looking at quickly implementable, low-tech, but actual improvements that